You're watching Bread and Roses, a weekly political social magazine that's broadcast in English and Persian via New Channel TV. Hello everyone, I'm Maryam Namazie.
And I'm Fariborz Pooya. In this week's program, we'll be discussing the Irish referendum on gay marriage with Michael Nugent, chair of Atheist Ireland.
Shocking news of the week is about the mass graves of migrants in Malaysia. Insane Fatwa of the week is about a warning for men and masturbation. Watch out for your pregnant hands in the afterlife.
And good news has to be Irish referendum again. We like that.
Stay with us. In a referendum, 62% voted in favour of changing the Irish constitution to allow gay and lesbian couples to marry. The landmark decision was celebrated across the world. A senior Vatican official, however, said it was a defeat for humanity. In fact, it's a defeat of homophobic religious values and a gain for 21st century human values. The Vatican has said that the wonderful referendum that is being celebrated across the world is a defeat of humanity. And again, it goes to show, how backward and medieval religion is. I mean, they don't care about people, they don't care about rights, they just care about that really messed up religious dogma of theirs.
Yeah, the imaginary friend. And I think
a bad imaginary friend.
Absolutely. I think the key to the power of religion is always over institutions and people's habits and key points. When in reality, when you look at it, they don't have the hearts and minds of people. In Ireland, everybody always referred to Catholic Ireland and never referred to a progressive Ireland, a secular Ireland. But in reality, they've taken over all the institution, and through domination of institution, the rules of society. I
mean, this is exactly the sort of thing that we always say about Iran and other societies that are considered Islamic as well. The institutions might be Islamic, the state might be Islamic, but it's very different from what people actually might think. And I think this shows that Ireland is not necessarily all regressive, all backward. People there want, equality for gay and lesbian couples.
Yeah, and we've always said do not associate people with the state.
Yes, definitely.
And in Iran, we've said that Iranian society is not an Islamic society, the government is. And Ireland, yet again, proved the fact that people and society in Ireland are very progressive and very non-Catholic and non-religious to the sense that Catholicism referred to. And again, we said about Israel as well, do not associate Israeli people with the state of Israel. So we need to be able to distinguish that all the time.
I think this is really, this is one of those things where you saw people celebrating on the streets. It gave me goosebumps, really, and it felt like it was a victory for all of us. And in a sense, when they say values are Western or East, they're Western, you can see how this is not the case, how universal it is, because it was really celebrated across the globe.
Yeah, and we've seen in that I've got loads of Irish friends. Some of them got married on that day. Huge celebrations everywhere on Facebook. People were really enjoying the moment. And we've always, any Irish person that I have had association with, friends, associates, colleagues that we worked with, we've never had that degree of Catholicism that supposedly Ireland was. And this is a great victory because it shows, the depth of the feeling of people of Ireland, and it shows the way, and it sets precedence for everywhere else. We want actually public vote on these issues, especially in countries which is dominated by religion. The other thing is that this is not the end for religion. There are more things needs to change in Ireland, and that's the first step.
Yeah, definitely. This is something that Michael Nugent talks about in his interview. It's a wonderful interview. I was really lucky. I just saw him the same day that this referendum was victorious. We were at a conference together in Cologne, and he was just talking about how Ireland is always looked upon as a Catholic country, but it's a very plural country, and the state is behind.
Can I suggest we watch the interview now?
Yeah, and let's watch the interview and tell us what you think about it. Stay with us. Hello, Michael Nugent. Welcome to our program. I wanted to ask you about this wonderful victory in Ireland for gay marriages. Can you explain what's happened?
Yes, well, Ireland, of all countries, has become the first country in the world to make gay marriage constitutional by popular vote. There are a number of other countries where gay marriage is legal, but in all those countries it's been done either by a government law or by a court judgment. Ireland is the first country that the people have voted as a whole to make marriage equality for everybody.
That's amazing, and especially given the, the way people look at Ireland as a very religious country.
Well, it used to be a very religious country. I don't think it is anymore. I think it's more complicated than that. I've always said that Ireland used to be a Catholic country, and now it's a pluralist country, but with Catholic laws. So the people have moved on. The people are much more pluralist. The people are much more tolerant. But we still have laws in place from the time that the Catholic Church did have a more iron control over the people. We still have, for example, the Catholic Church running 90% of our primary schools. The Catholic Church has exemptions from our equality laws that allow it to discriminate on the grounds of religion in those schools and in hospitals. You still have to swear a religious oath to become president or to become a judge or to become Taoiseach in Ireland, which is the Prime Minister in Ireland. So all of those laws are still in place from the time that the Catholic Church was in control. But now, as this vote has shown, the people have moved on, and it's up to the politicians to catch up with the people and to start passing laws that are more relevant to the Ireland of today than to the Ireland of 100 years ago.
I read that there was a lot of work by the Christian right to try and make sure that this doesn't happen. What's the background to that?
Well, I tell you, it's actually quite encouraging in a way, because what they did was they were campaigning on the basis of saying, well, look, if you have gay marriage, you'll have an increase in surrogacy, you'll have an increase in adoption by gay parents, and a whole range of issues that were nothing to do with the referendum, because all of those are dealt with by other laws, and they apply equally to straight couples as they do to gay couples. But what I found encouraging about the fact that they were using those arguments is that it's clear that they felt uncomfortable being openly homophobic in a way that, 20, 30 years ago, they would have been just campaigning against this on the basis of, no, this is unnatural. God wants people to be man and woman together for life. But the fact is that they don't feel comfortable being openly homophobic now, so they have to hide behind these distraction issues. And thankfully people saw through that and voted, not just voted for it, but it seems like voted, over 60%, almost 2 to 1 in favour of gay marriage, in a country where homosexual acts were criminalised up to the 1990s. It's an amazing turnaround.
It's really amazing. And what was, you were talking earlier about the situation of gay people in Ireland just a few years ago.
Yeah, well, if you go back to the 1980s, when homosexual acts were illegal in Ireland, there was a horrendous case in a park in Dublin, Fairview Park on the north side of Dublin, a public park, where a gay man called Declan Flynn was beaten to death by a group of people who openly called themselves queer bashers. They said they were that was what they were trying to do. And the judge said that it couldn't possibly be described as murder. They said it was a manslaughter, gave them a suspended sentence, and they had a victory march from the court back to Fairview Park. Now, that incident caused the first really big gay community protest march against these type of things as a result of that case. And that protest march eventually evolved into what is today the annual Gay Pride Parade, which is now like a big celebration of the gay community in Ireland. It arose out of that tragedy, but it's, something good has come out of it, and we now have just a short time later not only homosexual acts legalised, which happened in the 1990s. Unfortunately, it took in that case a gay senator going to the European Court of Human Rights and in order to get them to tell Ireland, no, look, you can't be making homosexual acts illegal. But now, a short time after that, we now are leading the way. We're no longer the country that everybody looks at as being the Catholic reactionary country, and it shows that society is more complex than some people would like to see it to be.
Definitely, and there's also been a lot of hard work, which I know you've done a lot of as well, to make this a reality.
Yeah, we work in Atheist Ireland along with a range of other groups, the LGBT groups on this issue, travellers groups in terms of discrimination against travellers, women's groups and feminist groups in terms of the lack of abortion in Ireland, and there's a range of rights-based advocacy groups that all have fairly progressive attitudes, and each of us have our own areas that we'll focus on the detail of, but we all work together to try to bring about a more progressive Ireland. This particular referendum was really encouraging because of the amount of new people that started coming out, canvassing, knocking on doors, that had never been politically active in their lives, mostly young people. Also the number of people that in the last week who live abroad came back to Ireland just to vote, and are then going, like thousands of people came back to Ireland just to vote, and then they're going back to wherever they live in England and Canada and Australia and in Europe, wherever it is. So it's a really exciting time, and it's like, for some of us this is, I won't say it's the culmination because there's still loads of stuff to do, but it's a really major step in something we've been doing all of our adult lives. I was up to yesterday, even when the votes were coming in and people were saying it's looking really like a yes, I was afraid to think it would be a yes, because I'm so used to losing these referendums, and I was thinking, they'll find another box of no votes somewhere in a corner or something, but it looks like it's through now. It's amazing.
Well, congratulations. Just one quick final question. What's the importance of gay marriages?
Well, the importance of gay marriages is that the gay people are seen as equal. Like America tried separate but equal with black people, and that didn't work out very well. And this idea that the Catholic right have been saying is, well, you have civil partnerships, that should be enough for you. Well, it's not enough for them, so why should it be enough for gay people? And now we finally have a situation where gay marriage is not only there in a way that civil partnership was, but it's protected in the Constitution. So even if you do get a government that wants to take those rights away, it can't without going back to the people.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed that fantastic interview with Michael Nugent. One of the things that he was talking about was the fact of how homosexuality was even criminalized only 22 years ago. When you think about it, it boggles the mind. 22 years ago. And now, by an overwhelming majority, gay and lesbian couples can get married in that country. What a big step forward.
And I think the fact that the constitution has changed, I think that's very, very important. I think, as you said earlier, other countries need to take, they need to follow Ireland. Ireland is leading.
Yes.
Ireland is leading in this area, and I think we need to have more rights for homosexuality and gay and lesbian people across the world, and we need to fight for that right in the Islamic dominant states in Middle East as well.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, one of the things he talks about too is the fact that, obviously they did a lot of work around this issue, and there were catalysts like the killing, a homophobic killing of a young man at a park, and how that was the that started, yes, these huge protests in defense of gay rights. But it is very hopeful because it does show how in a very short period of time things can change so quickly, and we do see that in other places as well, and so it does give a sort of hope to all of us who are fighting for various rights in countries across the world.
And those sort of incidents like Tunisia, for example, that one sort of small incident actually opens up the floodgate for the true feeling and true emotions of society to come out and how people feel in a country on certain issues. And these are the religious dominant institutions who always are keeping down people and removing their rights through their engagement with institutions, and that's the key.
I mean, you had also mentioned about how much money the Christian right from the US was actually pouring into Ireland to try to defeat it. Well, they didn't.
Absolutely.
Even that sort of money wasn't able to.
And it's not on the island. I think that Christian rights, particularly from America, they are pouring money into European countries. And including sort of Turkey, for example, the cities that actually the new churches is started purely by American Christian evangelical sort of churches.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think let's end with something Michael said, which was the fact that separate is never equal. It was tried in the US, for example, and there was a huge civil rights movement against it. For rights of black people, and again, it's being separate and having separate rights for gay people is not on. And so we salute the wonderful people in Ireland who voted positively for this, and we look forward to many more victories in the future. Shocking news of the week is about reports of mass graves in Malaysia, in the north of Malaysia, bordering Thailand. And they found so far 140 mass graves. Some of them have more than 100 people buried in them, and they're migrants who are fleeing from Bangladesh, from Burma, Myanmar, particularly the Rohingya Muslims who are fleeing persecution there. And this is their fate. They've fled to live, and they've been killed, most probably, in the most horrific way possible. And
this seems to be the feature of today's global sort of population movement. Borders are repressive, and we could see that in Southern Europe as well. We see in Italy, people fleeing from North Africa, war, genocide really is taking place. People are fleeing again in Malaysia, northern Malaysia, and we'll see all of this. Borders and strict border control, creates a space for gangs, criminal gangs, which are their hands are very, very closely sort of held by the local capitalists because they want to drive the wages down. They need an army of unemployed and poor people, desperate people to be able to manage the labour market. Really, that's part and parcel of the same thing. So the solution really is no borders and protection for people who want to flee persecution, whether they're fleeing to Europe or whether in Asia as well. We're going to see more and more of this, and we need to fight for global space for everybody to be able to protect it.
Yeah, I mean, that you raise a lot of important points, and this is the fact that there's such a there's all this propaganda against migrants coming, and about how countries will be overrun and so on and so forth. And the reality is that most migrants go to other countries in the third world because it's so difficult for them to actually get to Europe and the West. And the reality is that people who are fleeing are risking so much, in the sense, one, they're leaving everything behind, but two, the journey is so risky to begin with. So many people die along the way, and this is one example of that.
I mean, we worked on the refugee issues for many, many years, on the Iranian refugees in Turkey and in Europe as well, and we've seen very clearly that the border control, immigration controls of any kind really, creates a space for criminal gangs to get involved and use the most vulnerable people and abuse and exploit vulnerable people. And the states are party to this.
Definitely. I mean, even if you look at the mass graves now in Malaysia, there are links with government officials having had a hand in this.
Absolutely.
And they are working very often with the people smugglers.
Yes.
And the reality is that they've left no option. Of course, people smugglers treat migrants horribly, but the reality is that there are no other options for people to be able to get out. They can't just go out with a visa. Most embassies don't give visas anymore, particularly if they know you've got a real chance of applying for asylum. They're trying to stop people en route, and what we're seeing is mass human tragedy.
And what we really don't want anymore is borders. I think we need to remove borders. Yeah. We live in a global environment, and people should have the right to travel freely. And that was under the Enlightenment and sort of, 17th, 18th century. People were tied to the land. And this is what's happening now. People are tied to land and areas and countries now, and we need to remove those.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's free movement for capital. There's always free movement for migratory birds and whales. going across back and forth, you know, it should be the same, particularly for human beings who need to live free and without fear of their lives. Insane Fatwa of the week is from Turkey, and a warning to men that masturbation will cause pregnancy in the afterlife. Very scary stuff. You
palm of your hand,
need to be careful.
Palm of your hand. You'll have a baby on your hand.
Yes, yeah.
So it would be a womb here.
Most probably.
I'm shocked. I don't know what to say because it's, you know, afterlife. I thought you'll die and then you'll stay down for a long time. Stay down for a long time. And then after how many millions of years there would be Judgment Day.
Yeah.
So what happens in between?
But that's good because that will they'll make sure your hands are not pregnant before they let you in.
How many years, you know, so this pregnancy is going to take a long time, about millions of years till you get on a Judgment Day, and you have a look, they'll have a look at you, or everything is clear apart from palm of your hand. Okay.
Both your hands as well.
Sorry, you're going to go that way.
You're going to be in major trouble.
Wrong direction.
I mean, it's interesting because usually they say if you masturbate, your hands get all hairy, or you get blind, or your growth is stunted. Now this is an additional worry, and it's just for men because, of course, women do not masturbate. No.
And I think that's part of fear that they would drive into young people, you know, who are exploring their own sexuality, especially young. Is a scary thing. I mean, the attack on the mind. I'm getting attack on young people constantly. They're doing that. They're stupid.
They are, and it's so funny because the guy is saying, well, you know, to prevent masturbation, single men should get married, right? But I don't think he realizes that even married men can masturbate.
What about women?
Women are not even included in his thing, so we just don't do it.
He doesn't
we're
know.
So pure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
So basically, you've heard it from us. In the afterlife, if your hands are pregnant, don't say that you weren't warned.
It's a lie.
We warned you.
Don't believe it. It's a lie.
We warned them. What do you mean it's a lie? We warned you. Watch out.
Now, the good news for this week has to be, we have to talk about Ireland again.
Yay!
And the referendum that, you know, national referendum that took place in Ireland, because we liked it so much, we thought we talk about this again. Yeah, I think one of the key things that really is inspirational about Ireland is the depth of feeling immediately after announcement of the results, or whether it was emerging that the results of hundreds of thousands of people on Ireland were just on the streets having parties till late hours of the evening, and everybody was enjoying it. You could see that emotion pouring out on social media, on the streets, and it's just so fun. I wish I was in Dublin.
Well, that's what Michael Nugent was saying. He's like, for the first time, I want to say, I wish I wasn't at this conference in Cologne, and I was back on the streets of, Dublin celebrating. Because really, I mean, that's where everyone wanted to be. And
that is what brings, society together at the same time. These difficult decisions where people are fighting for, they've been campaigning for, month and month to get this. Actually, for years, really, they've been trying to, get the right on the statute book and change the law, and we've seen all of that come together, and you can see different generation of people have come together in Ireland. And I mean that was the brilliant part of the result of the election, that people for a moment you feel the power of the mass of population, from the deepest of the heart, and it just comes out on.
Yeah, I mean, and the other interesting thing is that so many people went back to Ireland to vote from other countries, and this is the thing, when they say people are apathetic because they don't want to vote for a bunch of criminals. But when it comes to issues that are really matters of human, the human heart and human rights and freedoms, a lot of people do want to vote, do want to have their voice heard, because it is, important.
Now, I agree. And when you see, as you mentioned, on elections that dominated by the media organizations distorting everything and put pressure, isolating people into individuals and atomize them, and they're all the scary stories. This was different. This was the power of popular feeling and popular vote, and it's totally different. So elections and decision making could be different,
Yeah.
could be popular, and it could be really participatory.
And the other thing, I mean, I know we're talking about Ireland, but what's important is to also look at the situation of gay people in many countries. Like in Iran, it's a punishment that is, you know, the death penalty for someone who carries out a homosexual act, you know. And in many places it's the same. You have, like in ISIS, gay people being thrown off buildings as a punishment for being gay, you know. So, you know, this does have an effect, because there'll be a lot of gay people in Iran and in the Middle East and North Africa looking at this news and saying, my gosh, you know, we might be treated as subhuman here, but this is not the view of many people across the world. And there is hope that one day, you know, we could also be treated equally. And it's part of that fight. And again, that goes back to the fact that this is such a universal fight, really.
I agree, and I think Ireland inspired a lot of people, and I'm sure we'll feel the effect of this decision by Irish people for changing law. We'll feel the decision and impact of this for years to come, and in different countries as well. So well done to people of Ireland for this inspirational sort of decision. Yay. And we love your decision.
Yeah, we're very, very excited. Before we go, we are taping 2 programs this week, because I'm going to be in Vancouver for a conference and won't be able to tape. But after that, after this program and next week's program, we're going to start answering your many questions, very difficult questions, very interesting questions. So we're going to have a segment called Question Time or something to that effect. So send in your questions and comments, and we will have a segment on that, and it's going to be very, very exciting. We also
would like to remind our viewers that we do need your financial support. Patreon site is you can send money directly, but we prefer that you support us and sponsor each program through Patreon site, which you will have the details as part of at the end of this program. Please do support us. We need every pound or dollar that you could send us.
Definitely. We hope you enjoyed this week's program, and we look forward to seeing you again at the same time, same place next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Maryam Namazie.
And I'm Fariborz Pooya.
We're hosting a program called Bread and Roses. It's a weekly program that's broadcast in Persian and English in the Middle East and North Africa, primarily Iran as well. And it's also shown on YouTube internationally. And
we've been doing this since last May. We're coming up to our year's anniversary, and we've had quite a lot of fun making these videos. We discuss taboo-breaking, free-thinking ideas. The Islamic regime of Iran has called us immoral and corrupt. And that's why you need to support us. We are the alternative voice in Middle East and North Africa. Of corruption and immorality. So do support us. Here's a short video from Patreon that explains how you can help us with even just $1 a week. That's nothing. Support us.
Patreon lets fans become patrons of their favorite artists and content creators. It's different than Kickstarter because it's not about one big project that requires lots of funding. It's more for bloggers or YouTubers or webcomics, anyone who creates on a regular basis. Here's how it works. When you become a patron, you're agreeing to give an artist a tip of an amount you set every time they release a piece of content, whether it's a new song, a video, or a recipe. You can set a monthly maximum to make sure that you're always within your budget. Choose an amount, enter your payment information, and you're done. Becoming a patron allows you to view and post in the artist's stream, and in exchange for your support, artists offer additional patron packages, which might include monthly Google Hangouts, music production tutorials, pre-sale concert tickets, or anything they can offer as a way to say thanks. Patreon, empowering a new generation of content creators.